good, all of you beautiful people out there? How are y'all doing today? That is fantastic. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, back to the Double Diesel Sports Podcast, the podcast where we talk everything National Football League in, season off, season it. Doesn't matter because it's football. I'm your host, Double Diesel, and welcome to this Week 6 recap of the 2023 NFL season. Before we dive into the video, I'd like to ask, if you have not already, please like, subscribe, and share the video if you know anybody that enjoys this kind of content, or if you yourself enjoy this kind of content and want to stick around. Helps boost the exposure, get us out into the algorithm, get more eyeballs on this show. So if you've not done that and you'd like to, please do so. That would mean the absolute world to me. Also, if you have not done so already, go support me on Patreon at patreon.com/Double Diesel Sports. Helps put food in my belly and helps support this channel if you have not done so and you'd like to. The link to that will be in the description down below. But let's get on with the show. So, week 6, definitely probably the weirdest week that we've had throughout this season so far. A lot of close games, though not necessarily the most clean games, for sure. A lot of sloppy football, a lot of unexpected football. We'll dive into a lot of that, what happened on Sunday, including what happened last night for Monday Night Football as well, but we'll get to that later in the show. We're going to start with the first game I want to talk about, which was definitely the most surprising game, and that is the San Francisco 49ers heading to Cleveland, Ohio to take on the Cleveland Browns, who went into this game with their third different starting quarterback this year. Deshaun Watson still dealing with injuries, and they didn't want to go back to the DTR thing. You know, even though DTR looked good in preseason, they played him earlier this year, and he did not look good in a game against, I want to say it was the Baltimore Ravens, if I'm not mistaken. So, P.J. Walker, XFL legend P.J. Walker, coming off the street, going into this game, starting for the Cleveland Browns, wearing the all-whites, that I have come to the conclusion that the all-whites, both that the Browns wear and the Cincinnati Bengals wear, those uniforms only look good if they're being played in primetime games. When they're being played during the day, especially in a cloudy, muggy day like it was in Cleveland on Sunday, they just don't look as good. So that's something for the future. But I want to talk about the Cleveland Browns first. And this is a team that heading into the season, I couldn't get the best gauge on as far as how they were going to perform, because they had the talent. That was not disputable. Like, they had the talent on both sides of the ball. They had made a lot of retooling in the offseason on the defensive side of the ball, especially. And this was sort of a prove-it year for Deshaun Watson, if that contract was going to blow up in their face. And it was also kind of a prove-it year to see what this Browns team was going to look like, not just for this year, but for the potential of competing moving forward. And so far, through 6 weeks, the offense has been so-so, even with Deshaun Watson in there and DTR not looking good. And P.J. Walker, even yesterday, was just sort of, like, the offense in general, just sort of mediocre. You know, not having Nick Chubb for the year is definitely brutal. It was a brutal loss, and the offense just sort of looks mediocre. But that's not the reason why this Browns team all of a sudden looks dangerous. This Browns team looks dangerous because of this defense. That, let's just keep it a buck, they are the best defense in football right now. And considering how this defense looked last year, you wouldn't have thought this was even possible. Like I said, they have the talent. They have the talent on the defensive side. Myles Garrett being arguably the best defensive player in football. Denzel Ward continuously being snubbed as a guy that could be in the top corner conversation. They have the safeties to play it. They have good linebackers. JOK still looks really good. You know, they have the talent on the defense. But last year, they just were horrendous. Joe Woods did a horrible job as a defensive coordinator last year when they were doing this Fangio shit last year, and offenses just picked them apart in spite of the talent. And the defensive line last year was basically just Myles Garrett and a bunch of practice squatters. And this year, it's just a complete turnaround that I don't even think the most optimistic of Browns fans expected out of this defense. You know, they hire Jim Schwartz, they bring him in, and you could just feel like, remember those old 49er defenses with Robert Saleh and even with D'Amico Ryans last year, where as the year went on, where they would just, whenever they made a huge stop on third down, they would just be coming off the field doing jumping jacks and shit, fist pumping, chest bumping, and Robert Saleh would join them in the chest bumping. It just, they played like fucking maniacs. And you're starting to get that sense with this Browns defense with Jim Schwartz. Now, Jim Schwartz isn't out here chest bumping guys. He's a little too up there in age to be doing shit like that. But they have that same sort of play like bats out of hell mentality where they are just everywhere. They are making huge plays. And coming into this week against San Francisco, you thought, you know, with the offensive skill players that they had, with Brock Purdy playing the way he had, dropping 40 points on a really damn good Dallas defense the week before, you thought, okay, this defense is probably going to be a little timid. They're going to play off, maybe play a bit conservative. No, they didn't, man. They were aggressive. They played press. They were in their face the entire game, and they were pressuring Brock Purdy throughout the entire game against an offensive line that I said even before the season that outside of Trent Williams, this isn't really that good of an offensive line. They're just an offensive line that is protected by the system. And that defensive line for the Cleveland Browns just bullied them all game long. Myles Garrett really won for most of the day against Trent Williams, who, yes, was banged up in this game. But Myles Garrett continued to assert his dominance. And this was the first game where the Niners offense looked average. And they didn't look average throughout the season. And the Browns really asserted themselves as a defense that is forced to be reckoned with. Like, this is one of those defenses that's like, a nickname is coming soon. Like, this is the best defense in football. And you can imagine that this defense is going to really, if the Browns sneak into the postseason, it's going to be because of this defense. And it's going to be because this defense is so dominant that it doesn't even matter what they do on the offensive side of the ball. Because like I said, the offense is just mediocre. Shit, they were mediocre even when Deshaun Watson was playing. But yeah, man, they pull out a huge upset win. And that's that for Cleveland. And as far as San Francisco goes, like I said, this was the first game where they just looked mortal. And I thought this was a 49er team that was unbeatable. I was like, who the hell is realistically going to beat this 49er team? And I thought, you know, Cleveland was going to give them a bit of hell. But I ultimately thought that San Francisco was going to pull through in the end because they just have so much talent on the offensive side of the ball. And at the first drive of the game, it looked like it was going to be like that. You know, they marched right down the field, scoring a Christian McCaffrey touchdown run, and it looked like, all right, same story. It looked like it was going to be the same story, or close to the same story as it was last week. And after that opening drive touchdown, San Francisco just couldn't get anything going. Obviously, having Christian McCaffrey go out in this game with an injury, and then Debo goes out with an injury, all of a sudden, these explosive playmakers, when they're not in, all of a sudden, Brock Purdy looks a little exposed. Yeah, he had easily his worst game as a pro, his first real regular season loss in his career, his first real loss in his career, period, because, yes, he lost in the NFC title game because he was the starter, but he didn't really play that game, and he did manage to go in late, but he was really couldn't throw the ball, so you couldn't really pin that loss on Brock Purdy. This was his first real loss in the NFL. And, he didn't even reach 200 yards passing. He looked panicked. He looked confused. The Browns were just throwing everything they could at him, and he just looked lost out there for the first time. And Brock Purdy has not looked lost at all in his entire time as a starter here for the 49ers. And I'm not hitting the panic button because when all those guys, when Debo's out there, when Christian McCaffrey's out there, this is one of the more unstoppable offenses in the NFL. But they just ran into a buzzsaw or a brick wall that is the Cleveland Brown defense. And now questions are starting to come up potentially of, is Brock Purdy the franchise quarterback that we were hyping him up to be? And he now looks like, all right, yeah, he is a system quarterback that benefits from having the maximum talent around him. And when he doesn't have the maximum talent around him, he starts to look like an average quarterback because he doesn't have the physical upside. He doesn't have this rocket shooter for an arm. So it's something to look into. The defense for the 49ers still look really good. They still look awesome. I'm not concerned about that unit at all, even though they basically were playing against a guy that was fresh off the street. But I'm not worried about their defense. And their offense, there's a blueprint now, potentially, on how to beat the 49er offense and how to compete or slow down the 49er offense. And then obviously Jake Moody, the rookie kicker, not a good day at all. He came into this game perfect on all his kicks and missed 2 in this game, including the one that would have gave the 49ers the win. So yeah, there's a lot of question marks around this team now all of a sudden. And the Cleveland Browns, I'm not going to say they're a force in the AFC because the offense is sort of bleh. And in the modern NFL, you just need to have a competent offense. And we'll see what happens when they get Deshaun Watson back, because even though I've said he doesn't look that great, the offense still has looked worse when Deshaun Watson hasn't been in there. So, excuse me. So it's a matter of wait and see what it looks like with them moving forward as far as the Browns offense is concerned. But their defense, if they're going to win a significant amount of games and make some noise this season, it's because their defense is that dominant. So that's all for that. Next game I want to talk about is a game that coming into the week I was not having on my radar, but coming out of it is something that I feel like is a true talking point, and that is the Saints taking on the Houston Texans. And the talking point for me, at least, coming out of this game was, are the Houston Texans actually good? I did not expect after week 6 for the Houston Texans to be at 500 and to reach the same number of wins that they did last year. I was not expecting that at all. And they beat the New Orleans Saints 20-13, despite the fact that CJ Stroud really didn't have that great of a game. We were talking about CJ Stroud and how good he has looked as a rookie quarterback, and he's looked phenomenal as a rookie. And yet this game didn't really play all that well. Didn't reach 200 yards passing, going against a good New Orleans Saint defense. Threw his first career interception in this game. And yet he didn't really look all that good. The offense didn't look all that impressive. They made scoring opportunities when they counted, but it wasn't the best game for CJ Stroud. But the defense, though, they looked really impressive. And this is probably the most shocking thing on this Texan team. I was watching this game yesterday, and I was like, this is a I cannot believe that DeMeco Ryans in year one came in and basically got a top 10 defense out of sticks and mud. Like, this is an incredible coaching job so far, what DeMeco Ryans has done, especially with this defense. And, they were able to move the Saints were able to move the ball up and down the field in between the 20s. But the Texan defense, when they needed to make stops the most, and when they needed to get turnovers, and when they needed to make key critical stops, they rose to the occasion, and they were able to stand, and they were able to force multiple stops on this Saints offense. And this is really something to keep an eye on for the rest of the year because, like I said, they are at 500. This is a team that all of a sudden is in a spot where, the Jaguars look improved. The Jaguars have seemingly gotten their shit together. But Trevor Lawrence got injured on Sunday, and we don't know the extent of the injury. The injury is shown that it's probably not super severe, or at least what we've heard. But the Texans playing the way they are, if CJ Stroud can get more performances that he had the past couple of weeks, as opposed to what he did on Sunday, this is a team that all of a sudden in year one of Stroud and Ryans can potentially compete for this division. Honestly, they can. Like, this is a borderline good football team, and this is despite not having all that great a talent on either side of the ball. So imagine what this team can look like for 2024 and 2025 when they do accumulate more talent. They do bring in more talent through the draft and free agency. That's scary, man. And so far, this rebuild for Houston is going as perfect as it could have gone because you now know that you have the quarterback to build around. And now you have a defense that, despite not having that great a talent, is still playing their fucking asses off. So I'm really intrigued to see what the Houston Texans look like for the remainder of this season. And as far as the New Orleans Saints, I mean, defense played relatively well, but the concerns with this team is the offense. And, Derek Carr, if you look at it on paper, I mean, he had 350 yards passing. On paper, Derek Carr looked like he played well, and he did. Like, in between the 20s, he played well. They were able to move the ball effectively. They were able to take shots down the field when they could. But then once they got into the red zone, I mean, Derek Carr, like, what the fuck, man? Like, it was like the second they passed the 20-yard line and got into good scoring position, it was like Derek Carr just forgot how to play football. Overthrows, missing open guys, missing reads, like throwing a check down to Alvin Kamara on a 4th down in a 1-score game late in the game. And it's like, what in the shit? It's like, where's the Derek Carr that was slinging it in between the 20s? Where's the Derek Carr that was all of a sudden going balls to the wall throughout the remainder of the drive, and then in the red zone, all of a sudden he goes back to being his timid self? It just doesn't make sense to me. And it's just further proof that the Derek Carr signing in the offseason is just not a needle mover whatsoever for this team. Now, they, in theory, can be good enough to win their division, but at what cost? At what cost? This team is mediocre on their best day. So you can't win when your quarterback is slinging like crazy throughout the entire drive, but then shits the bed once he gets into the red zone. You can't win consistently when your quarterback's doing that. And what's the point of having weapons like Michael Thomas and Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed, who continues to look like a rising star, and Alvin Kamara coming back after a suspension, and He looks like he's rejuvenated a little bit. What's the point of having those guys if your quarterback plays timid when you get into scoring positions? What's the point of having a really good defense if your offense can't consistently put up the points when they need to? So that's really the main thing with the New Orleans Saints. And yeah, I mean, we've known this for years now. Post Drew Brees, post Sean Payton, this is a team that's stuck in purgatory, and they have no mentality of trying to get out of it. So yeah, that's really that for the New Orleans Saints. That's the thing I wanted to talk about the most from that game. And now, Eagles-Jets. It's time to talk about Eagles-Jets. And this was the second, probably most shocking game. I thought the Eagles, coming into this game undefeated, and they still weren't fully clicking on offense, but yet they were still putting up points. They were still winning games. And they were going against a Jets team that, playing against Zach Wilson, that, had improved over the last couple of weeks, but is still Zach Wilson. And as far as the Jets defense goes, the Jets defense went into this week without either of their starting corners. Sauce Gardner and DJ Reed were both out for this game. Their best corner was Michael Carter, and he was tasked with guarding A.J. Brown. Yeah, good fucking luck with that, I thought. And I want to talk about the Eagles first. I'm nervous all of a sudden about the Philadelphia Eagles because the defense I'm not worried about whatsoever. The defense played incredibly well. They held the Jets offense completely in check, outside of the running game, that is. But the Eagles defense did their job. They did everything they possibly could have. The Eagles offense, though, and I know the Jets defense is incredible, but when you're going against the Jets defense that is missing their two best corners, and you have A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith and Jalen Hurts at quarterback, you have to take advantage of that. And yet, Jalen Hurts and Sunday was the pinnacle of it, where he did not look like the $55 million a year quarterback that he was paid in the offseason. He does not look like the top 5 quarterback that we thought he could be going into this year. And there's no other way to say it. He lost this game for the Philadelphia Eagles. He had a terrible game from a passing standpoint. He had 3 interceptions thrown in this game. First one wasn't his fault. They tried to get it to a tight end screen to Dallas Goedert, and it was a weird thing where it got deflected and into the arms of Quillen Williams. That one wasn't his fault. Second one, he got hit on a pressure. Ball fluttered in the air and got intercepted. So those first one definitely wasn't his fault. Second one, you can maybe make an argument, but I don't want to put the blame fully on him. But the third one, though, was just inexcusable. Fresh out of the 2-minute warning, you have the football, and he tries to force one into Dallas Goedert, and Tony Adams, the safety, just steps right in front of it and picks it off, returns it deep into the red zone where the Jets, one play later, scores on a Breece Hall touchdown run to give the Jets the lead, which was, correct me if I'm wrong, it was their first lead of the game. And it's stuff like that where it's like, what the hell is going on with Jalen Hurts? And it's a matter of, like, was Shane Steichen that... I mean, we knew Shane Steichen was a big part of Jalen Hurts' development, but I didn't know if he was that big of an issue or that big of a factor in Jalen Hurts' productivity to the point where he's just not playing like the way he did last year. And it's just it's weird seeing a guy that got paid as much as he did in the offseason, who had so much hype coming into the season as a guy that could officially assert himself as a consistent top 5 quarterback, and making the mistakes that he did at the tail end of this game. You know, not making all the throws that we thought he could still make. You know, just chucking it down the field into double coverage on a 4th down in a do or die drive at the end of the game. And it's like, bro. And I'm not going to put the blame fully on Jalen Hurts. You know, Devonta Smith had a horrendous drop late in this game where he was wide ass open. He could have gotten a huge chunk play and potentially even scored, and he just flat out drops it. But, you know, Jalen Hurts he dropped the ball. I mean, Devonta Smith dropped the ball on that play, but as a whole, Jalen Hurts just did not perform the way we expected a top 5 potential quarterback to perform. And I get it. The Jets defense is a really damn good defense, but you cannot put the ball in harm's way like that the way he did yesterday. The Philadelphia Eagle offense, they scored on a touchdown pass from Jalen Hurts to DeAndre Swift with 5.5 minutes to go in the second quarter, and they did not score since. They scored their last points with 5.5 minutes to go in the second quarter. That's not good at all. I don't think I need to tell you that that's not good. So, we'll see. Hopefully, this was just a one-off, really terrible performance by Jalen Hurts, and they're able to get it together because they have the talent. They have the talent to compete, and the defense is incredible. But that offense needs to get something together. They need to get back to what they're good at, which is running the football and really taking advantage of those situations. And that's the thing. I thought they were going to take advantage of the fact that they didn't have their top 2 corners more. I thought for sure they were going to. I saw that matchup and I'm like, oh, they're going to feast. A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, they're going to feast. And they didn't. They didn't at all. So that's the thing with the Philadelphia Eagles. As far as the New York Jets go, all of a sudden, the New York Jets season is completely turned around. Because this defense is incredible. Despite the fact that they didn't have Sauce Gardner, despite the fact they didn't have DJ Reed, this defense is insane. Robert Saleh has proven yet again that he is one of the top defensive minds in football. And they were just playing like animals, and they were getting pressure. You know, they were confusing Jalen Hurts constantly throughout the day. And this defense is legit. But we knew that. And offensively, they didn't have that great of a game. They went against a great Eagle defense, but they did enough to win the game. And, you know, this is an offense built on running the football at the moment because they still don't trust the quarterback play that much. But Breece Hall is an absolute stud, and they're going to have a really, really damn good running game. And as far as for Zach Wilson goes, look, man, Zach Wilson, these past few weeks, he's done what he has needed to do, which is, hey, just be a game manager, just get 150 yards or more, don't turn the football over, don't do anything totally crazy, just manage the game, and we'll let the defense handle it, and we'll let the run game handle it. Just don't, like, you are Mark Sanchez right now. You are the Mark Sanchez of 2009 and 2010. Just don't put the ball in harm's way. Let the run game, the defense, handle it. Just don't fuck it up. Just don't fuck it up for us. And these past few weeks, he has not fucked it up. And that's what they need. Now, all of a sudden, with a huge win against Philadelphia, they are in a spot now where they're entering a portion of their schedule that is incredibly winnable. Now all of a sudden, this is a time for the New York Jets to make noise, and Aaron Rodgers rehabbing from his Achilles, saying that he wants to potentially come back in time for the postseason. I don't know what he would look like in that situation, being that he is 39 years old and an Achilles injury is serious for an athlete of any age. I don't know how he would look, but if he comes back and looks like even half of what they expected of Aaron Rodgers, and the Jets are able to sneak into the playoffs, we'll see, man. Like, we will see what that looks like, but the Jets season that looked dire in the dumps a couple weeks ago, now all of a sudden has a new sense of life, and this team now has a real chance to compete again. And after week one, that looked like it was not possible at all. But now all of a sudden, it looks realistic and it looks possible. And now it's time to talk about the last two games here, and they're the primetime games. First off, starting with the New York Giants heading to Buffalo to take on the Buffalo Bills. And let's be honest, we all thought it. We all knew it. Not many people probably watched this game because we assumed this game was going to be a slaughter. I did. I mean, I still watched it, but most people probably thought that way. And it's not hard to understand why people thought that way. Giants are one of the worst teams in football. And now you're missing Daniel Jones. So now it's like, that was a bad quarterback and a bad offense. And now you're going to put a backup in there. Granted, it was Tyrod Taylor, who's had a lot of experience in this league and has had pretty good success for the most part in this league. But still, though. And going against the Buffalo Bills that after not looking that great in week one, all of a sudden, they start they rediscover themselves, and now they're back to being the Buffalo Bills we expect them to be. So I and everybody else thought, all right, this is going to be over by the end of the first quarter, probably. Over by halftime if the Giants are lucky. And it didn't go like that. I want to talk about the Bills. Actually, I'll talk about the Giants first. I'll get to the Bills in a second. The New York Giants, I would probably think about potentially starting Tyrod Taylor for the rest of the year, because while the Giants didn't really do much as far as the scoreboard is concerned, they were still able to move the ball relatively effectively against a pretty good Bill defense. And they were able to be semi-competent, at least from the quarterback position. And Saquon came back for this game. He looks good and healthy. Yeah, he wasn't able to do much in this game until the fourth quarter, where they just started spamming the trap play, and he just was breaking off big run after big run. So, but outside of that, they played okay. Like, considering how this Giants offense has looked all year, to say that they look semi-okay is a huge step in the right direction. But, that's not to say they didn't have their flaws. They had, two huge mistakes in this game, both coming on the 1 yard line and both being the final play of each respective half. The first half play where it seemed like Brian Daboll had a pass play dialed up. Tyrod Taylor checks out of it, checks it to a run play with 14 seconds left and no timeout. So I don't know what the thought process was of checking to a run play, unless he was like for sure confident that some was going to pop up, that Saquon was going to be able to sneak it in there. Didn't happen. Saquon barely got back to the line of scrimmage and wasted a lot of time, and they didn't have any timeouts, and it was around under 15 seconds left in the half, and they couldn't get up lined up fast enough to spike the ball. And Brian Daboll, understandably, looked pissed. And who knows? Even if it's a situation where they throw a pass and it goes incomplete, if they kick a field goal, all of a sudden, maybe this is a different game. Maybe this is a different situation of what happens later on. Or if they do dial up the pass play and they do score a touchdown on that play, who knows? But Tyrod Taylor tried to do too much in his head and checked it to a play that was not going to work in that situation. And they ended up not getting any points at all. And then the second one was late in the game where they had the chance. They were driving down the field with a real chance to win this game. And last play of the game, 2 seconds left. Tyrod Taylor throws a pass to Darren Waller, goes incomplete, but there's a holding penalty. Good call in that situation. And then I like the play call. I really, really did like the play call by Brian Daboll. Tyrod Taylor didn't check out of it this time. They tried to do a pop pass to Darren Waller, but Taron Johnson forced an incompletion. Some people wanted PI on that. I'm like, no, I thought it was a good no call. I mean, watching it back, there was like a little tug on the jersey for sure, but I didn't mind the ref swallowing his whistle on that play because honestly, I didn't even realize it the first time watching it through. And I was like, hey, it was two guys fighting for the football. I thought it was a good no call. Hey, it is what it is. But the Giants did look improved, especially on defense. They held a good build offense in check for most of the game. And the Giants' offense looked better. I'm not going to say they looked great. I'm not going to say they looked good, but they looked better. Hence why at the beginning of this, I said maybe you should think about moving with Tyrod Taylor even when Daniel Jones comes back and healthy. So, yeah, because even though Tyrod was not perfect in this game either, but he looked better than what Daniel Jones has looked. So that's that for the Giants. Much better game than I expected from them. And then as far as the Buffalo Bills, like, you won. Cool. You won the game. And at the end of the day, wins are the only thing that matters until you win a game where you played like shit. And let's be honest, let's keep it a buck. The Buffalo Bills played like shit in this game. And, the defense played well, but, considering they were going against a Giants offense that has been anemic all year, I don't care if they have a new quarterback in there. You should be able to not let them pass the 50-yard line with how bad this offense has looked all year. And the Bills defense put them in a situation where they had the chance, the Giants had a chance to win the game on the last play of the game. So yeah, I'm not even fully confident in the Bills defense after that because I'm like, they should have crushed them. And then as far as the offense goes, I mean, my Lord, Josh Allen, ever since Brian Daboll left to be the head coach of the New York Giants, it feels like ever since then, Josh Allen has always, like, every now and then had these games, or the Bills in general have had these games where the game plan is really just, fuck it, let Josh do Josh. And that's where you get situations where, he's just throwing the ball in harm's way a lot, where he's running around and forcing balls he shouldn't be forcing and throwing boneheaded interceptions. And, it's shit like that. And Sunday night was one of those games where he was forcing it to Stephon Diggs a lot. And nobody else really scared the Giant defense because it really is just Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, and that's pretty much it as far as guys that consistently scare you. And then if you are able to consistently get pressure on Josh Allen, and teams I think have figured this out, if you're able to get consistent pressure on Josh Allen, he will try his best to lose the game. He will try his best to make decisions that will result in the team losing games. And they lucked out. They ended up winning, but they shouldn't have. Like, realistically, like, in some weird-ass way, the Giants outplayed the Buffalo Bills. In some weird-ass way, the Giants outplayed the Buffalo Bills. Who'd have fucking thought that, man? And I don't know how you fix that with Josh Allen because, like I said, he's been doing that for a year and a half now. He's been doing that for a year and a half now where he just has those games like that, and now they've kind of become a little more consistent than you would like out of your franchise quarterback. But, you sort of live with it. Bills fans sort of live with it because when those plays that he makes do work out, they're incredible, they're fun to watch, and they are amazing, and they're hard to stop. But then every now and then they don't work out, and it leaves you sitting there like, what the fuck were you thinking? So I'm not going to hit the panic button on the Buffalo Bills, but they're not going to be the one of the favorites coming out of the AFC that I think a lot of people still viewed them as, especially when they were down to the wire and didn't play well against a team they should have demolished. So that's that with the Buffalo Bills. And then final game I want to talk about is last night's game. Monday Night Football. Dallas Cowboys heading to Los Angeles to take on the Los Angeles Chargers. And I'll talk about the Cowboys first, man. Because the Cowboys, as much as we all hate the Cowboys, as much as we all want to see the Cowboys fail, and we love laughing at their failure, we also got to give them their flowers when they deserve it. And a week removed from getting curb stomped to oblivion by the San Francisco 49ers in San Francisco, they come out on the road again. And they not only look significantly improved, they looked once again like the potential Super Bowl contender that they were before last week against San Francisco. And I'm noticing this thing again where it's like it's a seesaw where like they look dominant the first 2 weeks. Then they shit the bed against Arizona. Then they look dominant against New England. Then they shit the bed against the 49ers. And now they didn't look as dominant against the Chargers, but still looked really fucking good. It's this constant seesaw. It's like fucking, it's like they beat the shit out of you and then they just shit the bed themselves. And it's like, Cowboys fans, I don't know how you fucking go through it. But back on the game for a second, Dak Prescott looked really friggin' good, man. Dak played really well, and it got to a point where, they couldn't get anything going on the ground with Tony Pollard, and Dak kind of had to put the team on his back, and he did. He was slinging it. He was making great throws. They got CeeDee Lamb more involved, and they looked really friggin' good against the Chargers defense. And the defense, obviously, we know how great that defense is. And a game where the Cowboys weren't as dominant, though. They weren't as dominant on defense this game. I mean, they didn't get a sack until the final drive of the game. So this really was a Dak, we have to win this game because of you. We need you in order to win this game. And he did that. He played extremely well, and that's the thing that Dak just needs to be. Dak just needs to be just a little above a game manager. Like 250 yards, don't do anything crazy, don't put the ball in harm's way, don't try and play hero ball when you don't need to play hero ball. Just be a game manager, play well, and just protect the football, and everything's going to work out. And when he does that, when he protects the football, They play well. He plays well, and the offense clicks and moves the ball and puts up points, and it looks good. I just want him to do it consistently. Like, just fucking do it consistently, and that's the thing he still has to prove. He still has to prove that he can do that on a consistent basis. This team has to prove that they can do it on a consistent basis, because if they go in, they're in the bye week this week. So, but if they come out of the bye week and lay an egg, and the seesaw fucking continues, I'm gonna start losing a little hope in this Cowboys team and their ability to compete this year. But they had a huge bounce back win against the Chargers in Monday Night Football, and that was desperately needed. Now about the Chargers. Man. First of all, that lady, God bless her heart, that lady that they kept showing during the broadcast last night, she is just, I saw people on Twitter saying, like, she had to be a paid actor. Nobody loves the Chargers this much. And, man, like, they kept panning to her the entire game. And all her reactions are the perfect definition of what it's probably like rooting for the Chargers. The ultimate highest of highs and excitement, only to get fucking crushed. All your dreams are dismantled in front of your eyes. And you saw all that with this one woman throughout the course of the game. And like I said, that perfectly sums up this team, man. They have talent galore. They have the quarterback, Justin Herbert, with the cannon of an arm. They have the elite receivers and Keenan Allen and the great running back and Austin Eckler. And, they have guys on defense and Derwin James and Khalil Mack that looks rejuvenated and Joey Bosa. And, they have the talent galore. And yet, they will always make plays where it's like, they are just so dominant and they're so flashy, and it's like, yes, this is a team that could compete. Only in the last final seconds of the game, constantly, for them to always be on the losing end of the coin. And it's like, how the fuck does this team constantly find ways to lose? Every possible way that you could possibly lose a football game, this team has found ways to lose. And it's not just losing games, that's losing them in the most heartbreaking way you can possibly imagine. And who's to blame? I mean, the blame changes every week. I mean, most weeks it's Brandon Staley, who can we just go one game where Brandon Staley isn't facing a 4th and 1 decision? Just one. Just fucking one game. Like, I'm sick and tired of seeing this man constantly go for it on 4th and short and constantly fail on 4th and short situations. And, but yeah, as far as this game goes, I would say the blame on this game goes on Justin Herbert, because he missed a lot of throws in this game, including one in the 4th quarter where he had Keenan Allen wide ass open, and he overthrew him, completely missed him. And then the final drive of the game, down 3, a chance to drive down the field. On a 2nd and 10, Micah Parsons gets home. Very next play, Justin Herbert throws a pick to Stephon Gilmore, game over. And Justin Herbert just didn't look like the top 5 quarterback that Chargers fans hype him up to be, and that we all know he has the ability to be. So the Chargers is just this constant cycle, man, and that's why I say I lose faith that this Chargers team can ever win something meaningful, because it doesn't matter how much talent they have, they're always going to find a way to lose. They always are going to find a way to lose in the most painful of ways. So I'm sort of done with this idea that the Chargers can be a competitive team in their own division, let alone the AFC. I mean, the Chargers, I mean, not the Chargers, the Chiefs are probably sitting here. They're sitting back watching this, and they're like, this is the second best team in this division? This is the team that is supposed to be the ones that are supposed to beat us? Oh, okay. Like, they're sitting here, and now they're 2-3 in third place of the division behind the fucking Raiders. They are a game behind the fucking Raiders. They have one of the more talented rosters in football, and they are one game behind the Josh McDaniels, potentially Brian Hoyer quarterbacked Las Vegas Raiders. That's all you need to know, man. And that's another reason why I'm just done hoping that this team gets it together and hoping that this team can close out a fucking game. So, that's all for that. And ladies and gentlemen, that is going to put a wrap on the show. Like I said, if you've not done so already, please like, subscribe, and share the video if you have not done so already. And also, if you like to, go support me on Patreon at patreon.com/DoubleDieselSports. That link is in the description down below. With that being said, I'm Double Diesel. Peace.